Or maybe I'll ask the question. Um, Gopal, just now you mentioned about the two arahants. Would you care to elaborate more? I'd like to know more about the conversation that they had, if it's convenient to share. Thank you, Gopal.
Well, this was at the funeral of Lumpur Tate, who you may have heard of, who was one of the disciples of Ajahn Mun, and he died a couple of years after Ajahn Chah. So out of great love and respect, many of us went to his funeral, and one of the nice things about going to the funerals of enlightened meditation masters is that you meet many other enlightened meditation masters at those funerals. They all come to pay respects, and often they'll stay the night or even many nights. So um, we had the opportunity to do what monks do for senior teachers, elderly monks, is we look after them. And there were two teachers, Lumpur Luang, Lumpur Rian. They considered to be very advanced in their practice, or enlightened monks, and we were looking after their needs, bringing them drinks, and it was very late at night, like midnight or something, on the night of the actual cremation of Lumpur Tate. So we were giving them foot massage because it had been a long day. Everyone had been sitting for many hours and hot and dusty. So a number of us were massaging their legs and their feet as a kind of act of service, and giving them some drinks and just generally attending to their needs. So they were talking about the practice to each other as if we were just like flies on the wall listening to them chit chat. And they were talking about the difference between the Bodhisattva path and the Arahanta path, and how, it's an amazing thing that there are Bodhisattvas, people who are practicing for future enlightenment as a Buddha. But at the same time, if you follow that path, it means endless births and deaths and endless suffering. Like our Buddha, we know, they say live for 4 asankeyas and 100,000 kalpas as a bodhisattva. And prior to that, he was practicing for many lifetimes as well. An asankeya is a very long time, a kalpa is a very long time. So 4 of them and 100,000 of them is a long, long, long time. So one who is on the bodhisattva path has to be ready for a lot of tired, frustrating practice, and they can't give up. One who has attained Nibbana has ended that whole path. They may not be a Buddha, but they're a Sawaka Buddha, an enlightened disciple of a Buddha. So they've come to the end of that path, so they can speak from this place of finishing with birth and death and all the tiredness and the pain and suffering of being born and dying over many lifetimes. So they're able to sit and chuckle about it. And they look back, and these two monks were talking about another monk who was a friend of theirs who had chosen the Bodhisattva path. And they just say, oh, he's got a lot of pain and suffering to go through because he's still got many, many lifetimes to experience. And they weren't speaking critically, they're just speaking as it is. He's going, oh, he's going to have to go through a lot. Nibbana, once you reach Nibbana, they were saying, that's it, that's the end of it. No more suffering, no more birth. The khandhas are no more a problem because you no longer attach to your khandhas. You have no more fear. Our basic kind of problem as a human being is we attach to this body and mind, the 5 khandhas, and we fear everything, don't we? Like someone today was saying they're having a colonoscopy tomorrow, and they're so afraid of what the test might reveal about their health. And that's happening every day, isn't it? Have I got COVID? Have I got cancer? What's my blood pressure doing? What's happening? We attach to this body with so much fear and anxiety about what might happen to it. Or if we meet someone who's aggressive, or even an animal, a wild animal, we're afraid. We have to live with all that fear until we've put down the burden of attachment. Once you have put it down, you're liberated, you're free, you're happy. You're no longer a slave to all your desires that come through having a body, feelings, the attachment to the feelings, always wanting more pleasure, hating pain, loving pleasure, that's tiring, and it's like we're a slave to our khandhas. But one who has reached the end of it, put it down. So they were talking about this, basically talking about the benefits of Nibbana. Why do we practice? What's the benefit of it? What's the purpose of it? Because many people misunderstand, don't they? They think Nibbana is the end of birth, the end of attachment. It's one of the words the Buddha used is emptiness. So it just doesn't sound attractive, does it, as a goal, because we're so obsessed with worldly goals of pleasure, fame, fortune, success. A goal of emptiness, it just doesn't sound very attractive. But you have to understand, emptiness doesn't mean emptiness in the sense of meaningless. Life becomes meaningless, like a void. It means empty of suffering, because it's empty of attachment. No more birth, no more attachment, no more suffering. Which must be good, because if you've got no more suffering, it means you're totally and permanently happy. So, sometimes it's good to remind ourselves, what are we aiming for in the practice? And, why is it good to let go of these 5 khandhas? If I let go of the khandhas, I've got nothing left. But, you do have something left, because you have a mind that's liberated and free from attachment. As Ajahn Chah used to say, it's like the man you meet walking along the road, and he's got his heavy rock he's carrying, and he's way down, he's exhausted, he's sweating, he's in pain because he's carrying this heavy rock. So you say, you're carrying that heavy rock, why don't you put it down and you'll feel better? And he stops and he thinks, and he says, because if I put it down, I have nothing left to cling to. Because he doesn't know that by putting it down, he'd actually feel peace and relief. And we're like that with the khandhas. We don't yet know that to let go of the khandhas is going to be good for us. We doubt, we're not clear in the path, so we keep attaching, reinforcing that attachment. So sometimes, it's good to listen to the arahants or read about them, hear about them, because it's reminding us actually, you let go, you'll be happier.
Sadhu. Thank you, Long Po.
Thank you, Long Po. Can I please invite Sister Serene from Malaysia, please?
Sukihotu, Long Po. I have a question about, now there's a COVID pandemic, and it's getting worse and worse in some countries, especially in Malaysia now. And there are more and more people losing their job, and the people go hungry. And, but they still have, some have to go to work in the factory. And there's always a constant fear of infection. So, Long Po, can you advise how these people can stay calm and not be depressed? And now, as we know, not everyone have the background of meditation or, have heard about the Dhamma. Thank you, Long Po.
Yes, so it all depends on each individual's background. That is a huge important factor. I mean, anyone can appreciate the happiness that comes from developing generosity, kindness in daily life. So being supportive of each other at this time. And to be kind and generous, you don't have to have lots of money or power or influence. People often mistake it and think, those people can do it, but I can't. I got nothing. I got maybe no job, no money. But happiness that comes from kindness and generosity, it's a state of mind. It's a mental state that leads through to skillful speech, skillful action. And anyone can develop it. Even though it's challenging in times when we're facing hardship, it's challenging, but it can be done. And it's the way out of the suffering, isn't it? There are things in life you can't do much about. So you can't do much about the spread of COVID. You can do your own part, like practice good hygiene, be careful, wear your mask, be careful. That's your part to play. But the bigger picture, you can't do much about that. But you can do something about your own state of mind. So meditation does help, or just hearing the Dhamma and developing the Dhamma in different ways, skillful means. Every day we've still got that available to us, even if we're ill, or even if we're in a fear of becoming ill, or even if we've lost our job. Like there are people here in Melbourne, there's one man staying in our other monastery, Bodhipala, where I was last week. He's lost his job because of the pandemic, so he's becoming a monk. Why not use this time to go on a meditation retreat at home if you can't go out? I know many people who are doing their own meditation retreats at home, doing more meditation, chanting, listening to the Dhamma, like this very occasion here. We didn't do this before the pandemic, now we are. There's ways we can practice charity, generosity, in the home. We can do things for other people in our home, whoever's around us, our neighbors or our family. We can find new creative means to practice generosity online in different ways. We can still help each other in so many different ways. We can sit at home and still have a kind thought and send it out to the world. There's just so much we can do, and we have to encourage each other and support each other to do that, to help the mind not fall into depression, or if it's in depression, to help get it out. So even if someone doesn't know about meditation, hasn't learned it, there's still plenty to be done. Practice of kindness and generosity every day until it becomes normal. And you find when people are practicing generosity every day, they have more resilience and they understand better what to do to look after their own mental health as well as their physical health. We help each other and we do the best we can in the situation. And because of the internet, we're lucky that we have the internet in the time of COVID, because you've got access to teachings, to see and read about and learn from so many good things in the world. But we have to use the internet wisely, use all the means we have, social media, websites, YouTube, whatever it may be. We have to learn to use that to benefit ourselves, to find out about the good things and the way to develop ourselves, practice for ourselves, rather than use it just for indulgence, which is what we tend to do when we're not very aware or we're getting into more unwholesome states. We tend to indulge them. Learning to give up bad habits in the time of pandemic. If you've got more time at home because you've lost your job or you've got less work hours, and you're at home, there's all kinds of things we can learn. And I was reading about some scientific research today. We actually feel happier when we say no to a bad habit. Say, you've got a habit of gambling, drinking, watching pornography or something, these sort of things that we get addicted to. Learning to say no to that, establishing the goal, I'm going to give up my addiction, I'm going to find a way out of this, I can see it's causing me suffering, and I'm going to use this opportunity now to change my habits, change my lifestyle. Making that decision and then putting it into action will make us happier as people. We feel better for saying no to things that we're addicted to. I'm not saying it's easy in any way, but that's something you can learn. Give up at least one bad habit during the COVID pandemic. If you're in lockdown, use lockdown to give up bad habits. Sit down and ask yourself, what bad habits can I give up this lockdown? Whether it's sleeping too much, or eating the wrong kind of food, or indulging in frivolous entertainments that don't help me at all and just wear me out ultimately and bring me no knowledge, or indulging my anger and becoming full of anger or feeling very depressed. Look at where you can improve your life in even small ways, smaller and bigger ways. That's our challenge now, and the pandemic has both brought its opportunity, but it's also brought challenges, and we have to learn from them.
Can I please invite Chun Chin? Chun Chin, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Long Po, for your sharing. So, Long Po, just now you mentioned that you are in the Long Po Tek funeral. So I just wonder, I heard that Long Po Tek, when he's in the cremation, during the cremation, that his body actually explode, and then the lyric is actually, spread all over the place. Is it true? Thank you, Long Po.
The body exploded. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, yes, something like that. I heard something like that. I'm not sure.
Well, every cremation, the physical circumstances can vary, how a body behaves as you burn it, a dead body. But of course, it can do that. Sometimes it can explode because of the heat. You just get different chemical reactions. The main thing with the enlightened masters is once they're cremated, you get ashes, and then the monks will be very diligent in collecting all the ashes and then sifting through them for relics, little pieces of bone, and then keeping them and building stupas, pagodas to house the bones. Sometimes they distribute them as well. And some of those relics will crystallize, and that's something that many people find very inspiring when they have relics of a teacher and they actually crystallize. They won't always, sometimes they remain as just little pieces of bone or ash, but many different teachers, including Luang Por Tate, have their bone remnants have become relics, have been crystallized. So I think that's the most important thing. People will collect up whatever, whether it's the body is exploded or not. They will do that. You might have heard Luang Por Bunyarit, when he was cremated, there's all the ashes were left, and there was this one huge relic left in the middle of the ashes, and that was his heart. His heart didn't burn. His heart was left as a huge kind of relic, and you could still see the shape of the heart, which is amazing because he was cremated in a very hot oven, and the rest of the body just completely disintegrated into ash, and then there was this big heart left there. So everyone thought, that's a sign maybe he had a big heart, the heart of somebody with lots of metta. The heart didn't go anywhere, it just stayed there, even with the intense heat of a cremation. There's many other experiences that people have had with different teachers. Sometimes you cremate the teacher overnight, the next morning you collect the relics, and already there's some crystallized relics in the ashes from the very first morning. It's immediate. Other teachers, the relics take months or years, just depends on different circumstances. There's maybe different factors involved. So yeah, I'm not sure how much the body exploded at Luang Por Tate's funeral. I was there. I don't remember it happening a lot. I remember at Luang Por Chop's funeral, there definitely was a big explosion of body, and stuff was coming out, and everyone was running to pick up all these little pieces on the grass. For Luang Por Tate, I can't remember so much that happening, but it may have happened.
Sadhu Luang Por. I think in looking through or listening to some of these stories, and also personally witnessing some of these highly acclaimed teachers myself at some of the funerals, I think it's not so much about how much explosion there is in the body or that, but just being in the environment, to be able to witness the life and the teachings of some of these senior teachers. It brings up a well of emotions as a practitioner. As I recollect right now, those pimples are actually setting up, because it's really not so much about the explosion, but the ability to be in the presence of a noble one, and also a community of noble sanghas, rises in our hearts a deep sense of urgency, a deep sense of gratitude, and really to be able to have this life of practice with the Buddha Sasana. And I think that to me is a great explosion of the heart, that it is an explosion of the physical body. So I'm quite sure many people here in this room who have been in the presence of many of these noble ones would also say likewise, Lampo. So brothers and sisters, are there any other questions you'd like to ask Lampo? Yeah, I just think through about just the recent funeral of Lampo Plin. And it's really sending chills down my spine, and a lot of gratitude, Lampo.
Obviously, when teachers pass away and you have a funeral, it makes everybody pay attention, doesn't it? If there's somebody you've respected, met maybe for many years, or even if you've only met them briefly, because of the goodness of their life, everyone is kind of paying attention, and it brings up all the good qualities, the faith, the mindfulness, the appreciation and gratitude, and then the recollection of the teachings. I always find those funerals very inspiring, partly because of everybody pulls together to make sure the event happens well and brings so many people together with such wholesome states of mind. But then also afterwards, it tends to boost everyone's practice, at least for a while. Like you say, develop that sense of samvega, urgency. That doesn't mean to say I hope that everyone dies so there's more funerals, but it's just, when these funerals take place, people tend to respond very well. It brings out the best in people, and large numbers of people, like you say, Sangha and laity coming together. Perhaps one of the most poignant funerals I went to was the funeral of Ajahn Buddhadasa. It was a very simple funeral in the forest at his monastery, and he was just placed on a pile of logs so you could actually see his body as he was being cremated, and they played a talk of his over the loudspeakers as he was being cremated, which was a talk he had given at someone else's cremation. So he was just talking about the impermanence of the body, about death, the reflection on death, all kinds of different aspects of the experience. So he was actually as if he was talking about his own cremation. And everyone found that a very powerful experience, because his voice was there very loud, but he was actually being cremated right in front of us. So never forget that.
Anyone, any comments they want to share at all? No, Lampo. I think we're all very overcome by today's session. Me personally, I just can't help wiping the tears now. Tears of joy, tears of reflections.
Well, I hope the session has been beneficial. We've probably discussed the 5 khandhas and the noble ones enough for today. If everybody is inspired, that's the purpose of it. We talk about the Dhamma to inspire each other, get us to practice more. So maybe we'll end there, and I'll encourage you all to keep keep up your practice and don't get depressed by the COVID pandemic situation. It's just one of those things that we have to go through, and the Dhamma of the Buddha is still good, still there for us to practice. COVID can't destroy it. COVID is already, as soon as you get the noble ones around, COVID goes into the background, doesn't it? COVID doesn't matter anymore. It's the Dhamma that's more important. So keep focusing on the Dhamma in your life, and you'll find you can get through COVID pandemic quite fine, quite well. So we'll pay respects to the Triple Gem now, and we'll see you next time.